Oh, precious one of God, do you know what it means to be hidden away with him, to step into that holy place where the world cannot follow? The secret place with God is not for the casual visitor. It is for the desperate heart, the one who longs for him more than breath itself. I feel the presence of the Holy Spirit even now as I speak to you, calling you deeper, calling you beyond the noise of life, beyond the applause of men, beyond the distractions that have kept you bound. In that secret place, he whispers mysteries. He heals the broken places of your soul. He strengthens you when no one else knows the battles you are fighting. There, in that place, the supernatural becomes natural and the impossible bends to his will. Tonight, God is inviting you, not just to know about him, but to know him, to walk so close that his heartbeat becomes the rhythm of your life. To lose yourself so completely that his glory is the only thing that remains. The secret place as the meeting ground where God reveals his heart and purposes is not a distant theological concept, but the very center of our relationship with him. It is that holy ground where heaven meets earth, where your spirit communes with the spirit of the living God. In that sacred space, everything else fades away. The opinions of people, the noise of the world, even the turmoil of your own thoughts. You come before him with nothing but your hunger, your longing, your need for him to speak. It is here that he begins to unveil the depths of his heart, not just his power, not just his blessings, but his desires, his griefs, his joys, and his plans. When you enter the secret place, you step into the audience chamber of the King of Kings, and suddenly you are aware that you are not merely a servant or a petitioner, you are his beloved. You are invited into the inner circle, into the council of God, where his eternal purposes are whispered to those who will listen. This meeting ground is not found in a physical location, but in the posture of your heart. It can happen in a quiet room, a busy street, a hidden corner, or a simple chair where you bow your head and say, Lord, I am here. The presence of God transforms ordinary moments into sacred encounters. It is not always accompanied by loud emotions or dramatic manifestations. Sometimes it is the still small voice, a gentle nudge, a scripture that comes alive and pierces your soul with clarity. It is the place where you realize that prayer is not just talking to God, but allowing him to talk to you, to shape your thoughts and reorder your desires. Many cry out for direction, but direction is given in the secret place. Many cry out for revival, but revival is birthed in the secret place. The secret place is where God's purposes are conceived, where destiny is stirred, and where the fire of obedience is lit. In that holy meeting ground, you begin to see as he sees. He allows you to feel what he feels about the world, about the broken, about your own life. It is here that he can trust you with insight that cannot be shared casually, with burdens of intercession that weigh on his own heart. He gives you glimpses of what is coming so that you might pray into it, prepare for it, and align your life with it. It is not a place for casual visits, for the shallow soul that merely seeks a blessing and runs away. It is for those who tarry, who linger, who wait until his presence rests upon them like dew on the morning grass. The longer you remain, the clearer his heart becomes, and you discover that the greatest reward is not the answers you receive, but the God you encounter. The secret place becomes a place of unveiling of his love, his plans, and even the true condition of your own heart. There, pride is stripped away, self-reliance is exposed, and you are left with the simplicity of a child who trusts their father completely. In that place, your prayers are refined. You stop asking merely for comfort and start asking for his will. You begin to understand that intimacy with God is not just about receiving, but about partnering with him, becoming an instrument of his purposes in the earth. The secret place changes you before it changes your circumstances. It makes you an intercessor, a carrier of his presence, a reflector of his glory. When you rise from that place, you carry something invisible but undeniable, an authority, a fragrance, a peace that others can sense without you saying a word. The secret place is the furnace where God forges his vessels of honor, where he takes ordinary lives and sets them ablaze from lays for his glory. The necessity of surrender and stillness to enter into God's presence deeply cannot be overstated, because God is not discovered in the rush of human striving, but in the quietness of a heated heart. Surrender is the act of laying everything down, your plans, your fears, your pride, your control, and saying to the Lord, Have your way. It is not a one-time event but a daily posture, a continual releasing of your will so that his will may prevail. Stillness is not simply the absence of noise, but the choosing to quiet your mind, to cease from the endless activity that keeps you distracted, to silence the voice of anxiety and lean into the gentle whisper of his spirit. In a world that constantly shouts for your attention, this is not easy. It takes intentionality to pull away, to close the door, to turn off the noise and enter into a place where only his presence matters. The soul that learns to be still is the soul that becomes sensitive to the movements of God, to his gentle leading, to his subtle corrections. An invitation to surrender is often uncomfortable because it requires trust. It means allowing God to have the final say over your life, even when it contradicts your plans or challenges your comfort zone. It means letting go of outcomes and saying, Lord, even if you take me where I do not understand, I will follow. This kind of surrender transforms prayer from a list of demands into a dialogue of devotion. It takes you from asking God to bless your agenda to asking him to align your heart with his agenda. In the secret place, surrender becomes the doorway through which intimacy is birthed. The more you yield, the more you experience the depths of his presence. The more you let go, the more he fills the space with his peace, his wisdom, his direction. Stillness then becomes the environment where surrender flourishes. In the quiet, God can speak without competition, and his presence can settle on you like a gentle weight, bringing rest to your weary soul. Stillness is also the place where clarity is birthed. The storms of life often cloud your vision and drown out the soft whispers of God's Spirit. But when you become still, you begin to see again. It is like a turbulent lake that, when calmed, reflects the sky perfectly. Your heart becomes that reflective surface where the image of Christ is revealed more clearly. Stillness allows you to discern between God's voice and the noise of your own emotions or the influence of others. It gives space for healing as well, because the presence of God is a healing presence, and many wounds cannot be treated while you are running. They must be exposed in the quiet, in the surrendered place, so that the great physician can do his work deeply. The necessity of surrender and stillness is also about protection. When you are rushing ahead of God, you may step into places that were never meant for you, carry burdens you were never meant to bear, or fight battles that were never assigned to you. In stillness, God can recalibrate your steps, redirect you from danger, and empower you for the battles you are called to fight. Surrender becomes the shield that keeps you from self-destruction, because you stop striving in your own strength and begin leaning on his. It is in this place of quiet yieldedness that faith is strengthened, because you learn that he is trustworthy, that his timing is perfect, that his ways are higher than yours. As you remain in this posture, you discover that stillness is not passive, but powerful. It is an act of faith, a declaration that God is in control, that you do not have to fix everything, that you can wait on him and see his salvation unfold in his perfect way. The transformation of character that happens when you dwell consistently with him is one of the greatest evidences that you have truly been in his presence. When you spend time in the secret place, you do not leave the same way you came in. God begins to work on the hidden areas of your heart, those parts of you that no one else sees, but that shape everything about how you live. The secret place is like a refining fire, burning away impurities, revealing what is of the flesh and what is of the spirit. It is in his presence that pride is broken, bitterness is softened, fear is replaced with courage, and doubt is overwhelmed by faith. The transformation is not forced but organic. The closer you are to him, the more you reflect him. Just as Moses' face shone after being with God on the mountain, your life begins to radiate his nature, his kindness, his purity, and his power. Transformation in the secret place happens because God reveals truth, and truth changes you. The word of God comes alive in that sacred space, no longer just ink on paper, but a living voice that pierces through lies and reshapes your thinking. You begin to see yourself not as the world labels you, but as God defines you. The shame of the past begins to lose its grip because his voice is louder than condemnation. The habits that once controlled you lose power because the presence of God empowers you to walk in holiness. You discover that sanctification is not merely about striving to be better, but about allowing God's Spirit to renew you from the inside out. This is why those who truly dwell with him consistently begin to bear fruit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, not as a forced performance, but as a natural outflow of intimacy with him. The transformation also shapes your perspective. Spending time with God changes the way you see people, problems, and even pain. Offenses that once consumed you are released more easily because you have seen his mercy toward you. Trials that once felt like punishment are now understood as preparation. You stop reacting out of the flesh and start responding with wisdom because his spirit is guiding your thoughts. The secret place becomes the training ground where you learn to walk in forgiveness, humility, and perseverance. It is where you exchange your limited perspective for his eternal one. You begin to trust that even what the enemy meant for evil can be turned for good because you have seen God's character up close and you know he is faithful. This transformation is also marked by a deepening hunger for more of him. The more time you spend in his presence, the more you crave it. Superficial pursuits lose their appeal, and you find yourself willing to pay the price for intimacy, whether that means waking early to pray, fasting to draw closer, or saying no to things that would grieve his spirit. This hunger leads to deeper consecration, and consecration always leads to greater transformation. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, think differently because his presence has rubbed off on you. People around you notice the difference. They may not be able to explain it, but they can sense that you carry something of God. This is why those who live in the secret place become carriers of revival, because revival is not something they visit, but something they embody ultimately. The transformation of character is God's way of preparing you to steward greater responsibility, greater anointing, and greater influence. He does not simply want to use your gifts. He wants to shape your heart so that when he opens doors, you will carry his glory well and not be destroyed by the weight of it. The secret place is where he builds the foundation strong enough to hold the destiny he has planned for you. It is where he teaches you obedience in the small things, so you will be faithful with much. It is where he gives you his heart so that when you step out, you do not just represent yourself, but you represent him. Hearing God's voice clearly and receiving divine instructions for your life is one of the most precious gifts of the secret place, because it is here that the noise of the world fades and the whisper of heaven becomes unmistakable. God has always been speaking, but the challenge is that our hearts are often too crowded with distractions, worries, and competing voices to discern what he is saying. The secret place becomes the training ground where your spiritual ears are tuned, where you learn to recognize the shepherd's voice above all others. This clarity is not just for comfort, but for direction, because every decision, every step, every assignment becomes more fruitful when it flows from a word you have heard from God. It is in that sacred stillness that he can give you strategies for your family, wisdom for your relationships, ideas for your work, and courage for your calling. When you dwell long enough in his presence, you begin to discern the difference between your thoughts, the enemy's lies, and the voice of the Spirit. God speaks in many ways, through his word, through dreams, through impressions, through the inner witness of peace. And in the secret place, you become sensitive to these various expressions. Sometimes his voice comes as conviction, gently steering you away from something that would harm you. Other times it comes as encouragement, reminding you that you are not alone and that his promises are still true. There are moments when his voice carries instruction, clear steps you are to take, and if you obey them, you find doors opening that no man can shut. The voice of God always carries life. It brings clarity, hope, and alignment with his will. That is why hearing him is not a luxury, but a necessity if you want to live effectively in his kingdom. The secret place is where revelation flows freely. There are answers you cannot find by human reasoning, strategies no book can teach you, and solutions no expert can provide, because they are hidden in the counsel of God, waiting for those who will seek him. This is why Jesus often withdrew to solitary places to pray, because the demands of life and ministry required him to stay connected to the Father's voice. If the Son of God needed that continual communion to stay in alignment with heaven, how much more do we? When you make hearing God your priority, You stop living by guesswork and start living by guidance. You are no longer tossed by every opinion or fearful of every circumstance because you have heard from the one who sees the end from the beginning. Receiving divine instructions also positions you for obedience, and obedience is what unlocks blessing. God's instructions are rarely given for curiosity's sake. They are meant to be acted upon. The more you obey, the more he entrusts to you because he knows you can be trusted with his secrets. Divine direction often comes one step at a time, requiring you to walk by faith and not by sight. But as you follow, you begin to see the wisdom of his leading. The path may not always be easy, but it will always lead to life. Sometimes he will instruct you to wait when everything in you wants to rush, or to step out when fear tells you to stay still. And it is in the secret place that your heart is strengthened to obey even when it costs you. Hearing God clearly also brings peace in seasons of confusion. When the world around you is chaotic, a single word from him can calm the storm inside you. His voice reminds you that he is in control, that his plans for you are good, that nothing can snatch you out of his hand. In a time when so many are desperate for direction, the person who has learned to hear from God carries a rare and valuable gift. They become a voice of wisdom to others, pointing them back to the one who speaks. The secret place makes you a carrier of divine counsel, a person whose decisions are not reactionary but prophetic, aligning with what heaven is doing in the earth, experiencing supernatural peace, strength, and protection in the secret place is one of the most powerful outcomes of drawing near to God because his presence becomes a shield that surrounds you and a refuge that calms every storm within. The world offers temporary relief, distractions that numb the pain, but never truly heal it. Yet in the secret place, the peace of God settles on you like a warm covering. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It surpasses understanding and guards your heart and mind like a fortress. When you sit quietly before him, the burdens that once weighed you down begin to lift, and the fears that haunted you begin to lose their power. The secret place becomes a sanctuary where you exchange anxiety for assurance and despair for hope. It is the place where your spirit is strengthened, where weakness turns into quiet confidence, not because the situation has changed, but because you are aware that God is with you. The strength you receive in the secret place is unlike any human motivation because it is sustained by divine power. The world tells you to push harder, to grit your teeth and keep going, but the strength of God does not come from striving. It comes from resting in him. It is in those moments of intimacy that he breathes fresh life into your soul, enabling you to stand when everything in you wants to collapse. This strength is often unseen by others but felt deeply within. You may face trials that would have crushed you before, yet now you endure with a steadiness that surprises even you. It is not because you are stronger by nature, but because his spirit is fortifying you from the inside out. When God strengthens you in the secret place, you are able to walk through valleys, confront giants, and persevere through storms without losing your faith. Protection is another divine benefit of the secret place, and it is more than physical safety. It is the covering of God's presence that keeps you hidden from traps, schemes, and spiritual attacks. Psalm 91 speaks of dwelling in the secret place of the Most High and abiding under the shadow of the Almighty, describing it as a place where no evil can harm you and no plague can come near your dwelling. This does not mean you will never face adversity, but it means that even in adversity, you are untouchable in the ways that matter most. The enemy may come against you, but he cannot prevail because you are covered. There is speeding, that divine shielding that surrounds those who stay close to God, a hedge of protection that keeps you from being destroyed by what was meant to take you out. Many have testified of being spared from accidents, spared from emotional breakdowns, spared from decisions that would have led to disaster, not by coincidence, but by the supernatural intervention of God in the secret place. God also gives you discernment, which becomes a form of protection in itself. He warns you when danger is near, nudges you to avoid certain paths, and prompts you to wait or move at the right time. This inner guidance can save you from entanglements, from relationships that would harm you, from business decisions that would fail. His peace acts as a compass, confirming when you are in his will and troubling your spirit when you are not. This is why those who make the secret place their dwelling are often marked by stability. They are not easily shaken by rumors, news, or crisis because their security is anchored in God, the supernatural peace and strength you receive there also become a testimony to others. People notice when you are calm in chaos, when you radiate hope in dark times, when you refuse to panic while everyone else is losing their composure. This calm is not natural. It is evidence that you have been with God, that you carry something from His presence. It draws others to you because they sense safety around you, a spiritual refuge that points them toward Him. The secret place not only transforms you, but also makes you a source of comfort and stability for those around you, allowing God's peace to flow through you into their lives. Living a life that reflects the intimacy you've cultivated with God in secret is the ultimate fruit of consistently meeting with Him, because the secret place is not meant to be an escape from reality, but the training ground for living victoriously in the world. When you dwell with God, something of His presence clings to you, and it cannot be hidden. People sense it when you speak, when you walk into a room, when you make decisions. Your life becomes a testimony without you even trying to convince anyone, because the fragrance of His presence lingers on you. This reflection is not about outward religiosity or performance, but about carrying an authenticity that can only come from truly knowing Him. The intimacy of the secret place births integrity because you are the same person in private that you are in public. You no longer need to strive to appear spiritual because you are genuinely being transformed in His presence. This kind of life becomes a light to others, drawing them not to yourself but to the God you have been with. When Moses came down from the mountain, his face shone because he had been with God, and the people could not ignore it. In the same way, those who spend time in the secret place radiate a quiet authority and a grace that makes people take notice. It is not loud or boastful, but undeniable. You begin to respond differently to challenges, with patience instead of frustration, with prayer instead of panic, with faith instead of fear. And these responses become a living sermon to those watching you. Your relationships shift because you now approach people from a place of love and wisdom rather than selfishness or impulse. Even your speech becomes seasoned with grace because what fills your heart flows out of your mouth. And when your heart has been shaped by God's presence, your words carry life. Living out this intimacy also means that your decisions start aligning with the will of God more naturally. The guidance you receive in the secret place does not stay there, but becomes the compass by which you live every day. You stop compartmentalizing your spiritual life and your practical life, because both are infused with His presence. You seek His heart before making choices, whether big or small, and as a result, you walk in greater alignment with your destiny. This kind of alignment produces fruitfulness because you are no longer wasting energy on pursuits that are outside of His will. Your time, your resources, and your energy are directed toward what truly matters, and that brings a sense of fulfillment that nothing else can offer. A life that reflects intimacy with God also carries resilience. When storms come, you are not easily shaken because you know the one who holds you. Your faith is no longer theoretical but experiential. You have seen God's faithfulness in the secret place, so you trust Him in the open battlefield of life. This kind of faith inspires others, not because you preach at them, but because they witness how you stand firm. Your life becomes a prophetic sign that intimacy with God is possible and powerful. You may never know how many lives are impacted simply by watching the way you live, forgive, endure, and rejoice even in adversity. Ultimately, living this way becomes an offering back to God. Your life becomes worship, not just your songs or your prayers, but the very way you conduct yourself in the world. You become a vessel through which His love is displayed, His wisdom is released, and His glory is revealed. You start to crave not just moments in His presence, but a lifestyle of presence where everything you do, your work, your conversations, your choices, is done with an awareness of Him. The secret place spills over into every aspect of your life, and this overflow is what makes you a carrier of revival, a walking invitation for others to encounter the God you have come to know so intimately.